Welcome back. So today we are continuing work on our Colosseum table. The material we're starting with using is just some cheap dollar store foam core. We're cutting this down into even sized bricks of 3/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch so that we can begin texturing our board. Now it's an important step here to, after you've cut a bunch of bricks, remember that you need to remove the paper from the bricks and go through the tedious process of removing all of the paper from those bricks. I highly recommend doing this when you have it down to the strips instead of bricks. When the foam core board is in an entire sheet, it can be a bit difficult to get the paper off, but if you do it once you have it into these evenly cut strips, you can get it off a bit easier and it's a bit less tedious. Once we have a large amount of these bricks cut up, we can begin to texture the walls of our Colosseum. And to do that, we take some glue. In this case, we are using Mod Podge, again, because it's what I have on hand. I'm a big believer of just using whatever you have around the house when you're crafting stuff, so use what you have. We're gonna begin bricking out the entire wall. Now, I find it pretty important to make sure you are staggering those bricks, just to give some extra interest. You don't want the line of bricks to just go straight all the way up, so you want to stagger those seams as you build up. Now, with the size of table we're working on, I would recommend taking this in steps. It took me about 20 hours to complete the amount of brick I needed on this board, so it's a pretty big step, but ends up looking quite nice. So once we have the entire inside and outside of the Colosseum entirely brick, we can begin on some of the external textures that come out from the wall. On the outside of the arena, I wanted angular stone pillars coming out from the wall. So all I've done is made another template out of some cereal box cardboard, and I cut out a large amount of this shape to make my pillars. Once I have the pillars cut out, I sand each side of the pillar and use some tin foil to just texture them a little. With those cut out, I'm setting them aside because we actually need to complete a step before putting those pillars on. To add some extra detail and interest to our building, we are going to be adding some rows of foam near the top of the wall, and these will function as stone slabs that are being held up by our pillars once they're in place. During this step I was using hot glue, but I was being very careful not to get too much extra onto the board. You don't want to ruin all of the work you've done with the bricks at this stage. Going back to the pillars we created, we just cut them down to the height necessary for each segment of wall. We're gluing these under the joins of the foam to make it appear as though the pillars are holding up the stone detail. With that all in place, we are taking another strip of foam and we are placing that along the inside rim of the foam slats we put before to add more texture and strength to that for gameplay. During this step, I personally chose to make this piece one solid piece of foam so there was no seams in it, but you could choose to break this up into multiple pieces so it's a bit easier to measure and glue. And this is where we're at once that is all glued in. Once this was complete, I took a few minutes to screw a large bearing to the underside of the table. essentially making our table a very large Lazy Susan wargaming table. This was one of the primary features of the table that I wanted to have, but I was unable to record this just because it was really awkward to hold up the table at the time. And then one of the last features we're adding for now is just some extra brick texture around the inside and outside of the gatehouse here. And with that done, this is what we're left with for now. There's still a lot of work to do on textures, but this is a fantastic starting point, and I'm very excited to continue this project. I hope this video gives you some ideas about how to build your own table, and I will be back in a future video continuing to work on this board. Until then, have yourself a good day. Bye now.